everybody. This is Shell's Pearls of Wisdom. Welcome back. If this is your first time here, welcome and hit like, and subscribe at the bottom of your screen. I am here with the lovely Lucinda today, A.K.A
Mickie Mangles.
Mickie Mangles. It's so awesome to have you here today. This chick right here is super funny, super cute. And I met her at World of Will 2020 in Milwaukee, and she actually helped me correct my boyish posing that I was doing.
I forgot about that. I was like, you're standing like a trucker. Come here.
So, as I think I'm being so dainty and pretty, she totally put me in my place and said, no, that's not how we do this.
I had to learn it too, because I was like, my first pinup shoot, yeah, you'll see pictures of it. It's not cute. I'm like, yeah.
So I do want to say thank you for that. I've got it together since then. Totally
Absolutely.
did. So I don't do the whole entire leg cracked out spread now. I do my heel to toe. So I'm learning. I'm still a baby pinup, so I'm still learning.
Girl, I'm into 2 years deep and I still think I'm a baby pinup, so we're always learning.
All right. So Lucinda has a very detailed story of her life that starts from the age of 3 and takes her to the current age of 42, soon to be 43 in a few weeks. Happy early birthday.
Thank you.
So we're going to try to condense this as best as we can for you guys so that you guys can get a full understanding of where Lucinda comes from and who she is inside, which I have just sat with her prior to recording an hour and a half, just taking it all in. And when I say that this woman is spectacular in all the things that she has overcome and had to go through, it is quite amazing of her journey to where we see her today. So please take note that this is not going to be easy listening. There are going to be some trigger words that are going to be probably said for some of our viewers that might have some past history themselves that rely on sexual or mental, physical abuse. So just to kind of put that disclaimer out there in the beginning, that there will be some sensitivity in that, okay? So Lucinda, thank you again for being on the show. And thank you for, taking the time today to share your story with us. And we're going to probably just dive right into it and start with the age of 3 of what was your life at the ripe age of 3 years old. What was going
on? My parents were still together, and my dad was the president of an MC, a 13% motorcycle club. And being the president, like our family was quite involved. And so there was always brothers in and out of the house with their families, and we'd go to different brothers' houses and whatever. And one of I believe he was like the secretary. He was like one of the like big guys with my dad that we were over there all the time. His son, who was, I believe, 9 years old at the time, began molesting me. And that went on for about 3 months before I finally, like as a 3-year-old, I don't even remember like what set it off or what triggered me to decide that it would be a good idea. I think we were talking about like being at their house and like, and I'm not going to use the guy's name, but, what did you and Jimmy do while, mom and dad were doing this and that? And I was like, well, me and Jimmy played Streetwalker and Pimp. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I got my Barbies out and I began to reenact the things that we did, that he was doing to me and having me do to him. And of course, as a 3-year-old, like I didn't really know what was going on. I mean, I didn't necessarily like it, but I was also, like it was get away, stay away, like they were taking care of club business, like you go play with him, and like I'd come out and complain because he'd be touching me and they'd like, get back in there, get out of my face. Because, you know, it's not like I said, I don't want to be in there because he's touching my private parts, you know, or he's making me touch his. I didn't say anything. So, yeah. My parents found out about it, obviously, because I told them, and my mom cried and, you know, like explained to me that, you know, it wasn't my fault and I didn't do anything wrong, but that wasn't something that we talked about. And that's not how we play with our Barbies. That's not how we play with our dolls, you know, and like trying to explain to me that it's wrong, you know, but it's not my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. I wasn't a bad girl, you know, but like it wasn't appropriate. And
Right. At the
my
same
dad,
time, they're saying that this was still not good. So
right.
it was like mixed signals, kind of.
Yeah. And my dad and the brothers took care of things. And unfortunately, that kid had a lot of issues, a lot of problems. He ended up setting his parents' house on fire and like stole a car and stuff I think he was 7 and ended up getting shipped away to like a boys' home.
So I know you said that around 5 you had a similar experience happen.
Again, part of the club, another club member's son, kind of the same situation, go play with Joe and Jimmy and Johnny. And Johnny would get me alone and have me do things. And I have a little sister who's 18 months younger. And I didn't want to do it. I already knew it was wrong. But when I tried to say no, he went after my little sister. So to protect my little sister, I went along with it. And I did what he wanted me to. And it was my mom's best friend. Um, and I was supposed to call her Aunt, you know, Aunt so-and-so. Again, I'm not going to drop a name. I kind of tried to allude to it. I don't think my mom really caught on, or maybe she just didn't want to, in her head, couldn't process it and didn't want to think that it was going on again. But I never really fully came out and said, Mom, this is happening. But luckily, very soon after that, like, as you know, it only went on for a few months. And the guy ended up getting busted for some stuff and went away to prison, so we didn't go over there anymore.
Wow. So in between that, Lucinda's parents got a divorce while she was 7 years old. She said in January her mom left, and the mom did take on a new boyfriend in around April. And then soon after that, she got quickly married again to another man. And at that time, this gentleman as well took advantage of Lucinda in a sexual, mental, and physical abusive way. And let's just touch in on that a little bit about like how that was how that was even possible.
Well, it was really hard for me when my parents divorced. I loved Daddy and I loved my mom. And although I knew a lot of the things that my dad did weren't right and there was abuse and infidelity and whatever, you know, it's still, as a little girl, like I was Daddy's girl, you know, like he was my world. And so it was really hard for me. And as you said, my stepdad came into the picture around February, March, April, something like that. She left in January, and within a month or two, like he was around and moving into the house. And they got married in December, but in August or September, right before they got married, I attempted to take my own life at 7 years old because he was mean and he was abusive to me, and he would make me touch him when my mom wasn't around. And I never told my mom because I didn't want my mom to be mad at me, and I didn't want to break up our family, you know, because we were supposed to be like a family. And so we were waiting for the school bus, and some kids were making fun of me because, you know, we're poor, we're trash, and they just kept on and kept on, and it was just, I guess it was just more than I could take after everything, like everything that was going on. And so I waited until I saw a truck coming from down the street, and I ran in front of the truck and laid down in the street, hoping that it would run me over.
And just for you guys, if you did not catch the age, this was at just a very young age of just 7 years old. At 7 years old, we're in kindergarten at this point, maybe first grade. So, yeah, it's something that a 7-year-old should never ever have to even fathom, to even think about, to even try to even do. And the fact that you had enough sense to even know how to do it is even scary. That's how broken you were, that you even knew a method. So, well, of course, we'll go to age of 15 in between here. I'm just going to kind of fill in a little bit of gaps so Lucinda doesn't have to tell too much of the story because it is very hard. At 15, she also expressed that that was another hard time of her life where she also tried to commit suicide, this time by hanging herself. I told her off camera that God was watching out for her because that was not successful for the simple fact the bar that she tried to use was not strong enough to hold her weight. So it gave out on her. So that was not successful, of course. And then at age 16, her stepfather did leave the picture, which sent her mom into a little bit of a spiral that left Lucinda to kind of have to take a lot of the responsibility of raising her younger sibling. And at that point, she told me about having to support her family, herself, working 2 jobs, taking care of her family, basically being the mother and providing for your family. And I will let you start at 17 because this is a little bit of a good moment. She expressed to me about her hard efforts and work in her high school career. Even with going through all of this, she was still able to, you know, finish high school, and you can kind of tell them about that.
So because everything that was going on and whatever, my mom always had to struggle, I swore to myself I wasn't going to be like my mother, and I wasn't going to be stuck, and I was going to go to college, and I was going to be somebody. So while I was working the 2 jobs, trying to save our home and going to school, I also enrolled in before school classes, after school classes, and a mentorship program, and took proficiency tests so that I could proficiency out of certain subjects in school. And I graduated midterm of my senior year and was able to gain 75% scholarship to go to college. I emancipated myself to get the financial aid because they wouldn't go on my mom's income, and took out the loans myself and went away to school. Went away to college in McMurray at Jacksonville, Illinois, which is sad because my college is closing down forever, May 1st.
Well, like I told you before, that in itself is awesome.
Thank you.
Without trying to get too emotional, because I always get emotional because I'm just a big baby.
No, you're good.
But it's
me, I'm
amazing.
I'm being a dirty, gross lady because I can't talk about this without smoking.
It's okay. It's okay, girl. I have a little bit of liquid courage right here, so don't worry about that.
Oh, the wine's behind me if I need to switch from coffee to wine.
There you go.
I set it up ready to go.
She's like, I got it on reserve. Don't worry about it. But like I told you before, like for you to be going through all of the turmoil and like anguish at home, your home life was just, let's just flat out say, it was bullshit. It was fucked up. It was not a good environment for any child at any age. So for you to be there.
But I want to step in and say this just in case something. My mom did the best that she could, and she came from like a lot of bad stuff, and she's got problems of her own. And while a lot of bad things were going on, my mom worked like, that's why I work so hard and I have so many jobs. Like I'm usually working 2 or 3 jobs. My mom was a working son of a bitch, and she still is. My mom
Well,
is
she gave you that part, like definitely.
62 years old and still works 3 jobs
Oh
and
wow.
works like a dog. And she, I never wanted for anything. I always had everything. I had nice clothes. We had video game systems, you know, whatever. My mom did the best she could for me. She just, I really don't feel like she had the,
I think she was in the cycle of abuse too.
yes, she was. She was my stepdad was abusive to her. He stepped out all the time. My real dad was abusive to her.
Yeah.
And so she
I
was going
mean,
through her own shit. And I just think it was too much for her to like even, and I, to be honest and fair too, I was playing mama. I did not let my mom know a lot of the shit that was going on, and it didn't happen in front of her. She was always gone at work.
well, you
So
told
I
me
got to
that
say,
too, was like part of it, that because you wanted to kind of like protect her and your sister, you stepped in sometimes and took some of the abuse that was being dealt out to kind of like soften the blow of like the backlash of it hitting other people in the family. So,
you know, like even though we don't get along all that great, you know, and I don't see him that often. I mean, like you guys are my family, and we'll get into that later because y'all saved my life. But they're still my mom, it's still my sister, and I still love them, you know.
of course, of
Sorry.
course, of course. Baby, I wouldn't expect anything else from you except for love. Shit, it's oozing out the damn pores. I believe it. I believe you.
So I just had to do that because yeah, it was bullshit, and like I shouldn't have to happen when everything that happened. But I don't.
Yeah.
As we're going to go through all this bad stuff, I
You
don't
want to have your family's back too. I
I
get it.
love that, but like also, Sean, like I don't. I wouldn't have lived. I would, and like people talk about, like if you could go back and like restart and go over and relive your life. I don't want to. I don't want to because I feel like whatever, I'm going to get big headed and pat myself on the back. I feel like I'm a really fucking good person. And yeah, I use the F word. I'm a really fucking good person. And I wouldn't be who I am right now if I hadn't gone through everything that I've gone through.
That is true.
And I
Amen,
a better
sister.
friend and a better mother and a better spouse
Yeah.
because of it. So
Yeah.
anyway,
No,
okay,
you celebrate you. You should. You did. Yes. Um. So she got to graduate school early. That is basically a testament to however your parenting that you received was. They did instill, like you said, your work ethic and working hard. And yes, you were a provider and a mother figure for your sister, and you kind of took care of your mom too when you had her back. So yes, I don't expect anything but greatness from someone that sticks themselves out. Anybody that sacrifices their own best interest for the interest of others is going to be a good person in my book. And that's where you sit there. So you will never lose that in my eyes. That's first of all. Because I don't even know if I would have enough balls to step in and do that for a loved one, no matter how much I love them. Because it's a scary situation. So you're brave too, on top of all of that.
well, thank you.
Um, so to move on to help her a little bit with this, she went to school, she went to college, and she studied art and psychology, which I asked her off screen if this was because of everything that she had gone through, if that's one of the reasons why psychology kind of like screamed out to her. And she did say that. She said that one of her goals was to actually be able to do to practice psychology, counseling therapy for young children, and also the art to maybe do art therapy as a form of a therapy for children that were going through hard times that she might have experienced herself as well as young when she was younger. Which I think for you to take what you've been through, the pain, and try to turn it into a positive, that's still another testament to who you are, because you were going to try to give back to another child that might have gone through something by your education, which is like beautiful. Um, Unfortunately, we're going to get to another hard time that happened when you were 18, when you were just trying to start your new life, get on this path of greatness. Now you're in college, things should be like a clean slate, but you hit another snag, and let's hear a little bit about that.
So the college that I went to, normally when you go to college, there's like fraternity houses and sorority houses and whatnot. There were a couple, but they had been banned from campus because of hazing. So they weren't allowed to have meetings. They weren't allowed to have fraternity houses or sorority houses. So instead, the soccer team, the men's soccer team, the men's football team, and the men's baseball team all had houses where they lived, you know, and like there would be big parties. And one night, the girls and I from my floor decided we were going to go to the soccer house to a party. And there was a boy there. He was older. He was a senior. And he was on the soccer team. And he was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful man. Chocolate skin and beautiful brown eyes. And just like the most handsome dude I've ever seen in my life. And he was paying attention to me. And, you know, I mean, I knew that he had a girlfriend, but I didn't know, like, maybe they broke up that day. I didn't know, you know, and I mean, like, he was just talking at first, and like the more the night went on, we were drinking more and drinking more. And I mean, I was a college kid. I drank a lot, you know, it's like I wasn't, you know, like, it's not like
Part
I
of
was
the territory.
right, you know, I
Yeah.
wasn't smashed, you know, but like we had been drinking. And then I just remember the next thing I know, I kind of come to, and there's pressure on me. Like I feel like there's something crushing me, and I hear people like laughing, and it's dark, but there's like a doorway behind them, behind these people, where the lights are on. So I can see like figures, but I can't really see what's going on. And I'm hurting really bad, and I can't understand, and I can't function, and I'm trying to come to, and then I realize that it's my vagina that hurts. And I can't move my arms. I can't get up. I'm fighting to get up, and and then I pull back, and I realize that this boy, he's on top of me and he's inside of me. And I start screaming, "No, stop. What's going on? Somebody help me." And well, fine, I'm going to use his name. His name was Kareem, and like they were chanting, "Kareem, are you creaming? Kareem, are you creaming?" And I'm just crying, and like I couldn't do anything but just lay there until he was done. And I wanted to, I wanted to report him, you know, and I wanted to go tell, you know, and my friends had left me. They took my car and left me, and I had to find my clothes and clean myself up and walk the 2 miles home to campus and get into my room. And I got into my room. My roommate was like mad at me. She was yelling at me because like by that time, everybody, like even by that time, like everybody knew it was a really small school. Everybody knew. And she was mad at me saying that like, how could you do that to girlfriend's name? And I was a slut and da da da. And I tried to tell her what happened, and she didn't believe me. She ended up moving out of our room over this. But other people, like I go to class the next day, and people are talking and they're pointing and they're laughing, and like, you know, I've got bruises and like everywhere all over me, and like I'm a slut, I'm a this, I'm a that. And so I just decided not to tell because, you know, he was rich and he was star soccer guy, and they were already making fun of me, and I didn't I didn't think they'd believe me. So
And that just lets us know that this is why I mean the date rape and the fact that college rape and even in high school now is so high because of this exact scenario. The fact that women don't have the opportunity to have a platform to feel comfortable enough to come forward because they're afraid people will not believe them. They're afraid of being made fun of or being called like the school slut or things of that nature. And honestly, it's not going to ever change until we as women feel comfortable enough that when things like this happen, we feel like we have a place to come and talk to someone. We have a place today to tell. Do you have someone over there talking to you?
My son was trying to get my attention for a second, but he gave up.
Okay. I was like, my son came into the kitchen with his loud music, and I was in here like, so they
Right?
came in at the same time.
That's hilarious.
um, so with all this being said, she did not report this one. This kind of went unnoticed. This went unsaid. So you just dealt with this by yourself, which of course now leaves her probably with even more post-traumatic stress than she even had before from her childhood. So now we're moving into the age of 19. She admitted that she had a full nervous breakdown while in college, her sophomore year, which made Lucinda have to not only go back home, but also try to. I don't think she was trying to take her life at this point. I think she was just taking medicine, and she ended up ODing on some pills that she actually stole from a fellow student, he said. And once again, God was looking out for Lucinda because at this particular time in her life, when she should have not even be here right now, she just woke up several days later in her own vomit, in her own urine from losing her bodily functions, from passing out, and just coming to. But she was alive and she was here. And that is something that we are all grateful for that know her. But she did decide at that moment that this was not the place for her any longer, and she decided to go back home. Um, with her leaving school, that ended her back home with her mom. And I believe you said that you started working full time at that time at 19 years of age. And still at the age of 19, she met her future first child's father. So you can tell us a little bit about that experience meeting him.
Um, he was amazing. He was, you know, I felt like really flattered because he was my boss at work, and he was like the trainer that trained all the new people to come in, and he was like really smart, and he had a degree from college, and like he dressed well, and he smelled good, and he played guitar, and was just everything that, like any young girl would just be swept off her feet by. He
Mm-hmm.
was 8 years older than I was, and we started seeing each other like almost right away. And within a month and a half, I found out that I was pregnant. Um, and I thought, as any young, stupid girl, like, oh, great, we're going to be together. He loves me. And in fact, he did not take it well. He wanted me to abort my child, and my mother did as well. And I refused to because actually something else had happened when I was in college, my um, freshman year. Um, I got pregnant with my boyfriend's baby and miscarried the baby um, at like 3 months. So I felt like maybe this was my second chance, and like, maybe this was my baby coming back to me. So I didn't want to, I didn't want to end it. And I figured in my head, I'm like, if it's not meant to be, then it won't be, like
Yeah.
they'll take it away from me again, like it won't. But I just didn't. So he left. We weren't together until I had my baby on my own. Horrible, terrible pregnancy. I was on bed rest. Um, I was in labor for 46 hours. I was in hard labor for 17. I pushed for 6.5 hours to get his big ass head out. And yeah, it was bad. I was in ICU for like 5 days afterwards. It was a really scary situation, but thank God something great came out of it. I have a 22-year-old son. But anyway, we ended up running into each other when he was 7 months old at a bar. I had finally turned 21. I was 19 when I had him, or 19 when I got pregnant, 20 when I had him, and 21 when I ran into his dad again at a bar. And we started talking and, fell right back into dating. And I don't know, should I go on from here about how things were? Um,
Um, well, I know that unfortunately, he was a great guy when you first met him. You guys conceived a son who is your first baby, of course, so you love him to death. Just a side note, her firstborn is autistic. He is a very good boy, and she loves him to death. But that was a struggle that she also has had to deal with as a parent, and as a parent of a child with special needs as well. It is not an easy life. It's a challenge in all of its own. Just to kind of, we won't go into too much details about that, but just to let you know, that's just one more pearl that she has on her necklace of wisdom, because it is a life-changing experience when you have to deal with a child with this disability. So I did want to at least let the viewers know that is something also that you had to learn to deal with, and you've handled it marvelously because he's thriving and he's doing well. So that's good.
Thank you.
But also that, unfortunately, that boyfriend also became very abusive to Lucinda at a point of her life as well. So once again, it's just this cycle that has been in her life, unfortunately, since she was 3 years old, that men have just failed her in the sense of being there to take care of her and be loving and supportive. They've been kind of abusive and very hurtful. She now is about 22, 23, and this man ends up kidnapping her son and her, and for many hours beating her and just basically holding her captive till the point to where she finally is able to find someone that can help her. And that in itself, I won't have her talk about that whole experience because that is something that's very traumatic, and I do not want you to have to relive that on camera right now. But I am sure that anybody that's listening can understand the magnitude of being held against your will for a long extended period of time with your son, who you're already like worried about because you're a mom. So of course, the first thing you're going to do is protect your son. So she once again put herself in the middle of that situation to protect her son from any of the abuse. She would put herself in the way to make sure she took on most of the abuse so that it would spare her son the abuse himself. So that is something that she also had to do. And unfortunately, the system has failed Lucinda many times where it comes to prosecuting these men in her life that have done this to her. So this guy, because he knew people in the right places and had the money to be able to do so, only served about 30 days of work community service, not even true hard jail time. So to not only go through this and then not even get justice from the whole situation kind of really just sucks ass. And I there's no real nice way to put that except for it sucks. For many, many years, this man has harassed her until about the age of 35, to the point where Lucinda had to get many restraining orders, many junctions from the court system to protect her, because this man for many years would just show up randomly at her home, at her place of business, at random stores, bars, just popping up on her and just continuing the harassment for many years. I'm happy to say around the age of 35 is when it stopped, but if you can imagine from the age of 23 to 35, this went on for a long, long time. Another reason why the system has failed her, because there was nothing that they could do to protect her from this man. At the age of 25, she met her middle son's father. So we can tell him about this experience.
Matt was great. He was funny. He was sweet. He was like my best friend. We did everything together. Unfortunately, he had some undiagnosed mental issues, which we ended up finding out later was his mother was schizophrenic, and we're pretty sure that he was as well, undiagnosed schizophrenia. But he was in a hard situation himself with a woman that he had a child with, and they came from money. Her father is a rich farmer from the area that I'm from, and her stepmother is a senator. And so he bounced back and forth from manipulation on their part mostly, but bounced back and forth from me to her and me to her and me to her. And I ended up getting pregnant, and he was with me for most of the pregnancy, and then like right before I had him, he left and went back to her. And after I had my son, he was about a month old, and he came back and wanted to be with me again. And I just told him, I just can't do it. As much as I love you, I can't deal with it anymore. Like, you're never, ever going to just stay with me. It's always going to be back and forth between me and her, and I just can't do it. And he tried a couple more times in the next few months. And when my son was 4 months old, I ended up meeting, I had a roommate and her older brother. And to be honest, I just was so tired of the BS and tired of being alone. Like, he was cute and stuff, but he wasn't somebody I was like wanting to date, or like,
Yeah.
he was just somebody to pass the time, like somebody to go to the bar with and like somebody to get laid, and um I mean, like, we're all adults, so whatever.
Right.
Well, then, like, again, I guess it must be fertile myrtle, because about a month into it, even using protection and being on the pill, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, okay, so what are we going to do now? Um, he ended up, it took him about a month, but he moved in with me. And I guess I'm just going to roll right into where it goes. So um, we end up getting married in December, and I didn't tell my son's father's family. I was still, even though him and I weren't together, I was very close with his mother, and I'd take the baby over to see her. And Deb was doing good at that time. Her meds were working. I told her she's schizophrenic. Her meds were working, and she was able to live on her own. Had her own apartment, was doing really well. And like, she was great to even my older son, like that. They were both her grandbabies, and like, she'd buy him birthday gifts and Christmas gifts and came to birthday parties. And like, she was amazing. So she wanted to see me for Christmas. And like, when we decided to get married, we kind of shotgunned it, like, we'd been talking about it, but like, we decided that, like, he asked me like the middle of November, and we got married December 6th. Like, we just,
It went
boom.
boom, boom, boom.
And so I don't know, maybe it was wrong of me, but I didn't tell the family, and I didn't invite them to the wedding or anything. And I kind of just sprang it on them when I went to go see her for Christmas. Now, when I went to go see her for Christmas, I assumed it was just going to be Deb. And I got there, and the baby dad's there, Matt's there, and Matt's brother and his girlfriend. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, I was
Yeah. You're like, oops.
well, and I got my wedding ring on and stuff. I'm like, well, by the way, my last name's now Cantrell, and I got married on the 6th. And
Yeah.
they're like, why didn't you tell me? Blah, blah, blah. Like, Deb's really upset. She's like, I wanted to come. I would have came. And I'm just like, I don't know. I didn't want it to be awkward, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. And like, I told her, like, it was all fast and whatever. And she wasn't upset with me or anything. She was disappointed. But Matt became very upset. And like, he wanted, not like mean, but like, hurt, crying, and asked me to come in the kitchen and talk with him. And he's like, the reason that I'm here, he's like, I've left Kristen. I've been staying with Brian now, that's his brother, for 2 months, and I've been working, and, like, I got on some different meds, and like, I feel much better, and like, things are better. Cause like, I knew he was depressed, and like, he took depression medication or whatever. He's like, I feel better. I feel stronger, like, I'm good, like, I'm not, I left her, and like, I want to be with you. He's like, I've saved up all this money, and my plan is, like, I already found a place like next month, and I'm going to move, and I want you and the boys to move in with me. I'm going to take care of you. I want us to be a family. And I'm like, Matt, I told you I just got married. And he's like, yeah, but I know you don't love him. I know you love me. And I'm like, yeah, I do love you, and I'm always going to love you. But like, I'm married now, and you know how I feel about marriage. You know how it is.
Yep.
Like I always said, because of how my parents got divorced and all the shit that I've been through, that like, once I get married, I'm in
It's
it.
for real.
I'll be
Yeah.
married until the day I die. I'm not giving up. I'm not ever going to get a divorce. And he's just upset and he's distraught. And I ended up having to like leave the visit early because like he just couldn't calm down, and like, it was really awkward. And I was pregnant at the time, and I miscarried our daughter January. Oh, well, no, I'm sorry. I'm skipping forward. Okay, so um in the middle of January, I got a phone call from his family. He had decided to, like, I guess 2 days after the Christmas visit, he decided to go back to Kristen, and he took that money that he was going to, in the apartment that he was going to move us into, and moved back in with her. And while he sent her to the store to go get something, and like they were in the middle of moving in, had just like brought everything in off the moving truck, and he was supposed to be putting things away while she went to the store to get whatever. And he wrote a note to his mother, and he wrote a note to his children, and he wrote a note to me, and he took a moving strap and tied it over the door, and he hung himself. And the letter was given to me. It was sent, not given physically, it was sent to me. And my husband was pretty controlling, but not abusive. And when the letter came, he knew it was coming, and he intercepted the letter and destroyed it. So I never got to physically have it in my possession. But the family did read it, and I was told that in the letter, he went on to say that he was sure that he was schizophrenic like his mother, that he'd been hearing voices, and that he was not willing to live his life on medication and being a schizophrenic. And also he didn't want to be with Kristen, and he just knew that it was a lie, and that he didn't want to live without me, and I wouldn't come back to him. So he was just giving up and wanted me to know that he was always going to love me and all this stuff. And I was pregnant, and I believe the stress of that going on, I wasn't allowed to go to the funeral by my husband. And I believe the stress of everything is what subsequently caused my miscarriage. I ended up miscarrying our child at 19 weeks.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because I didn't ask before.
Yeah.
Was that said and done because of how close of the time period of when you saw him at the Christmas time to when he actually ultimately took his life? Do you feel like this was your fault because you didn't just be with him? Or do you know ultimately it was his mental disorder that really was the cause of it?
I tell myself that it's not my fault, but it is something that I carry because my son doesn't have a father, and her kids don't have a dad. And his oldest son, he was married before. He's actually had been married twice. Jalen doesn't have a dad. And I know it's not my fault, but like sometimes I wonder, like you think about like how, and although I said I wouldn't want to change anything, but I wonder, like if I hadn't chose to stay with DJ, maybe I wouldn't have lost Shay, and like maybe I wouldn't have lost Matt. But then I tell myself that's just dumb, because everything happens for a reason. Everything happens in its own timeline. And then, even if I had moved in with them, the schizophrenia, he may have done it anyway. And then it would have been something that my children and I would have had to witness, because she came
And
home.
that's kind of where I was leading to that. I was like, I don't want you to ever think that that was, because I just know that you carry so much of a burden on your heart because you're just that person, that this was totally nothing to do with you. This was the mental disorder. Unfortunately, mental disease is
And I've also know that. I understand that.
Yeah.
I have people
Good.
attempts.
Good.
Still,
Because I didn't want you sitting here ever thinking like, oh, what if I would have just, no. It probably would have still ended up happening, just maybe around you and your kids, or, and it could have been so much more tragic and worse. So,
yeah.
just to give her a little bit of a breather again. After that, she did stay married to her husband at that time for quite a long time, for over 10 years, or just under 10 years, should I say. But unfortunately, he did develop a drug habit himself that she had to deal with. And anybody that's ever dealt with someone with addiction, once again, that's one of the hardest things to have to deal with a loved one that has any kind of chemical dependency on anything. So she also had to go through the abuse of that. And then the pregnancy loss in between the one that she just described. She also had to suffer through another pregnancy loss, which once again, I'm sorry about that as well. At 31, she was kind of tired of all that. I know she said earlier that divorce was not in her cards, but she knew for the health of her children, herself, and her sanity that this was not a healthy relationship. So she did decide to get a divorce at the age of 31 from her husband. And when things could be on the up and up and starting to look brighter and maybe start this new chapter in her life of being a divorced woman, unfortunately, life smacks her in the face once again. And she's diagnosed with cancer. And if you can just tell them what type of cancer it was.
Adult non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
And she had to have a major surgery that removed one of her lymph nodes on her neck.
11. It was actually 11.
11. Okay, 11 of them, which is significant. She had to go through treatment for a year or so after having that diagnosis, which was rough. If anybody's ever dealt with someone who had to deal with any type of cancer, it's very stressful, and it's very hard on the body. It's very hard on the mental status of people that are going through it. You try to put on the best face. You try to keep on trucking through, but the person's going through it, no matter if they have a smile on their face, inside, it's really, really a rough treatment. And so once again, you put on this brave face for your family and your kids, and I respect you for that.
Thank you.
At the age of 33, she moved out of her mom's place after moving back in with her mom after the divorce, and got her own place. And it looked like, once again, she was starting to go on a better path with her health. The cancer was now taken care of. And fast forward, we're at the age of, after she had the cancer, she was also struggling with weight. She was severely obese. I think you said her top weight was 324 pounds?
48.
48 pounds. And for anybody that sees her frame now, she's itty bitty. So if you can imagine, like, 200 pounds more on this woman than what she is now, it's a big, significant change.
Yeah.
But with that, she had a weight loss journey to start on, because her health was one of those things that if you don't get it together, you're going to have some other issues that follow, which she already had some embarrassing situations that happened with her children, embarrassing situations that happened at public events. We won't talk about them, but we all know what it is when you're an overweight person. There's certain things that happen where you're like, that you walk away feeling really ashamed and really embarrassed.
Also, my ass got stuck in a chair that was actually a big old chair that anybody should have been like, two normal people can sit in this chair. My ass was so wide it stuck, and a 20-pound chair. I stood up and it was stuck to my ass.
Okay, so I wasn't gonna tell the story, but there it is.
I got up and it was like, for real. I'm like.
So, like I said, anybody who's ever been bigger, we all have that one story where something really embarrassing happened because of our size, and where we were mortified. And I have gone through it, so that's why I was like, I'm going to spare that story.
I don't care.
She's proud of herself, and she's an open book. So there you go. I love it. I don't know if I would have had the balls to tell it. I would have been like, something happened. Don't worry about it.
That's just one of them, but that's the funniest one. So.
But she decides, one day that she's going to get her shit together. She's going to get her life together. So she opted for the surgery, the weight loss surgery, which for a lot of people is very successful. As you see, she looks great. And she was cute back then because she showed me some pictures, but she looks fabulous now. But it was not, that was not even just an easy peasy. She had to go through when people say when you're having surgery, they always have to tell you these are the things that can happen. But you cross your fingers that these are not the things that will happen. Well, unfortunately for Lucinda, she had some of the things that can happen if you have some surgeries. So just to kind of run through it, just for because it's a long list. She had the weight loss surgery, which they thought went well. She did develop bleeding in the abdomen, which the doctor, before he closed her, thought that it was under control. Obviously, it was not. And he still decided to close her up afterwards anyway, which then let her develop a hematoma inside of her chest, her abdomen cavity, which basically hematoma is a very fancy word for a big old bruise, which is blood clots. And they can become very massive if they continue to bleed. That's why internal bleeding is so dangerous. And while she has this massive hematoma growing inside of her, she starts to notice that things are not right. Because we all have that feeling where we like something's not right. Well, Lucinda had that, and something's not right. Ended up that this hematoma was pressing against her lungs and some other vital organs, which they had to go in and fix. But they had that handled. She went home, was with her children, woke up, not being able to breathe. The hematoma that they thought was getting better was not getting better, started to actually cause her lungs to collapse, which, once again, if you did not have God looking out for you, she could have just sat up in her house and died. But she was able to have enough strength to basically get the attention of her two small children by throwing a glass in a hallway that alerted them to wake them up. So they came to see their mom was in distress. They were able to get a 911 call out and her taken to the hospital. I don't know what horseshoe you have up your bottom.
There's one way and one the other way. That's what the problem
I'm just saying, I don't know where you have this, baby girl, but I've seen this kind of injury actually, and it did not end that well. So once again, you are blessed because you should not be here. It's just you should not be here. So of course, with all that being said, she survives that, which thank goodness. She then at this point she's about 39. Now we're in her 40s. She met a young man who was a really nice guy. It starts off typical. That's kind of like your typical love story start off. They start off real nice and real sweet and loving. And then they kind of turn into these douches that kind of like send her through a roller coaster of these emotions. And all Lucinda wants is this nice guy with this happy marriage and this white picket fence with her babies. Like that's all she wants, and she keeps getting like these half-cocked men that are like pulling the wool over her eyes. So this was no different. He was nice in the beginning, and then really, really shittily broke her heart and sent her into another little spiral of emotions and depression. And at the age of 40, her last attempt, she did try to commit suicide once again. But as you see, she was not successful. And it brings us to age of 41.
Okay, so after this suicide attempt, I did go back with him, and things, I want to say, well, there was some crappy shit in between, but things did getting better. But during that, like that happened in July, and by like late August, early September, we were back together and things were great. And in the beginning, I was having some health problems and they couldn't figure out what was going on, And I was literally 1 month shy of my 10-year cancer-free anniversary. And I had been to the hospital for chest pains and arrhythmia and like all this stuff going on and like a weird infection, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And they did finally, thank God, the right doctor ran the right blood work, and they found out that my cancer was back. And he was really great. He was supportive. Like, he helped out. Like, he did everything that he should, like we were moving in together, and he's like helping with the kids, and like everything's great. And time out for 2 seconds. My kid, what's up? So I found out I had cancer again. He was great. He helped out with things. I continued to work because I was actually supporting all of us. I mean, he had a job, but it was like he delivered Chinese food. So, I mean, he wasn't really paying the bills on that. And my journey was like back and forth with that. Like, when I first found out, I was like stage 1, and then I jumped to like stage 3, and then they started doing some stuff. I was taking chemotherapy pills, and like that seemed to be working, and like, it went back, and like the scans are doing better. And then we jumped back up to stage 3 again, and my doctor's like wanted me to do this clinical trial, this experimental clinical trial. Was sure that that was going to be like the answer. And I was willing to do it, and I qualified it for everything except for my income bracket. I made too much money for just my family, because they were only considering me, even though I lived with Tony and his 2 kids. They were only considering me and my 2 kids because we weren't married. And so my doctors was like, well, have you guys ever talked about getting married? Is this something that you would consider? And I'm like, I mean, well, we've kind of talked about it, but like, I ain't got a ring on my finger or anything, like we haven't gone that far. And he's like, well, I mean, I'm not telling you to get married just so that you can do this, but like, if it's something you guys are considering, like if you could speed the process up,
Right.
by this date, we can get you in. It's something you should talk to him about. And I'm like, okay. So, I go home and I tell him about it. And this is like the beginning of December. And he's like, well, so you for sure will get in it if you have this, if we get married, you'll get the clinical trial. And I'm like, yeah, that's what he says, that it'll knock me down because it adds 3 more people on, and that puts me in the bracket. And he's like, and you have a spot for sure. And I'm like, yeah, I have a spot. He's saving the spot for me. And he's like, okay, well, all right, fuck it, let's do it. And like, if we do it now too, like it's gonna be a win-win, because we'll be able to file taxes together, so we can claim all the kids, and we'll get a big return. And I'm like, okay, hey, whatever. So I do it because also, but like, like we talked about it, it's like, so I wasn't just doing it for like tax money and a clinical trial. I thought that we were doing it for love, but just like speeding it up because of those things.
Right.
So we get married, and I was still maintaining my home in Gary, but living with him in his house in Portage. But the house in Portage is basically just a storage unit, so that I didn't have to move everything in, because I was like trying to figure out how to condense all my crap and all his crap, because like we were both hoarders. And yeah. And also too, the kids were still going to school in Gary, my kids. And I didn't want to pull them out in the middle of the year. I wanted them to continue the school year and be with their friends. And, if I was working or he was working, there was nobody to get them. So they're not sitting at the school. They could actually walk to the house and at least be at the house until he got off or I got off. So, okay, fast forward, everything's good. We're all going good. And like the second week in January, he started acting like really funny, just acting weird. And I, like, whether guys want to admit it, they have their own man period, per month, and I'm like, well, maybe he's just on his man period. Like, I don't know what's wrong with him. I keep asking him, he won't tell me. Well, he also has a heart condition, and he'd been having problems. They were trying to adjust his medication. He was having problems with it. So I had just gotten a new job, and it was like a 40-minute commute. And on my way to work, I get a phone call from my oncologist. And he says, Lucinda, what are you doing right now? And mind you, too, it's kind of late. It's like 5 o'clock. And I'm like, it's weird that he's calling me so late. I'm like, well, I'm on my way to work. And he's like, well, what are you doing tomorrow? And I was like, well, I work. And he's like, what time? And I'm like, well, I'm supposed to be in at 10. He's like, is there any way that you can call off or not go to work? And I'm like, what is going on? And he's like, well, normally I wouldn't do this over the phone, but this is pretty important. He's like, Lucinda, we got your last scans back and you are pretty much stage 4. I don't understand what was going on. He says, like the clinical trial seemed to be working. You were at stage 2. Things were going well. Your blood work was coming back better and better and better. He's like, your T cells are off. Your RBCs are off. Your white cells off. This is off. Like you're lighting up like a Christmas tree. It's back down into there's a tumor here. There's this, just tell me all the bad stuff. And I'm like, I'm breaking out. And he's like, and we need you in here right away in the morning because I've sat down with my colleagues and we've discussed your situation and we have a couple of different options, but I also need you to sit down and talk with your husband and your family and let them know that if we don't find something that works, which I'm pretty sure that we got some things, we got some options. I don't want you to freak out, but if you refuse these options, you won't be here in 6 months.
Right.
And I'm freaking out. So I call my husband.
What you all would do. We would all call like our significant other.
Yeah, I call my husband and I start telling him, that I need to talk to him. And he's like, well, I need to talk to you. And I was like, okay, all right. So I'm like, well, he's like, but go ahead. I'm like, no, you go first. You go ahead. And he's like, well, I don't know. I just don't feel right. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't feel right? And he's like, I just, I don't feel right. I feel bad. And I was like, you feel bad? Okay. Well, I'm on my way. Hold on. I'll just turn around. I'm coming home anyway. Like I'm already a fucking mess. I'm coming home. And he's like, no, don't do that. It's not like my heart feeling bad. I'm like, so it's not your heart? What is it? And he's like, well, it's my heart, but it's not my heart, like medicine. And I'm like, okay, what are you getting at, Tony? What are you talking about? And he says, well, I don't love you. I changed the locks. I packed up your things. After work, you should stop by and grab your stuff. And I want a divorce. I have a new girlfriend and she's here right now and I don't want you to come back anymore. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, wait, pump the brakes. Like, I don't understand. Like, we just made love last night. Like, everything was fine. I don't understand. Like, do you even understand what's going on right now? And I proceed to tell him what my oncologist has told me. And he's like, oh, you're just saying that. You're just saying that because of what I told you. I'm like, no, I'm not. I swear to God, like, come with me to the doctor tomorrow. And he's like, well, that sucks, and like, I understand, like, maybe it is happening. He's like, but that doesn't change my mind, and like, I guess if you need something, like, if you really, really need something and you can't find anybody else to help you out, like, I'll still be there. But, like, I don't want to be around you anymore. I don't want you.
I don't know why. Out of all the guys that you told me about, this one irritates me the most.
Oh, I know. All the girls hate him. Ask Alicia about him, and she's like, "Oh, kill him! I hate him." Yeah.
Like, it just makes me just.
Oh, I know. Me too. Looking back on it now, I'm like, why the heck did you? The worst part, and I didn't even tell you about this. I still continued to see him and jack around with him up until a month ago.
Girl?
No, not a month ago. I'm sorry. Sam and I have been together for 3 months. So until 3 months ago, I was still.
Walk away. Good
I'm
riddance.
done. I'm done.
Yeah.
We're done.
Let the garbage man take him out to the curb and take him to the landfill where he belongs.
I still loved him, Sho. I was like,
I know. Love is the worst drug on planet because it will make you do the damnedest thing. I always tell people, love is the worst drug ever because it will make you do the dumbest, most unsafe, most unrealistic things. Love. Fuck cocaine and heroin and meth. Love is the worst fucking drug on the planet.
Yeah.
I get it. But you gotta break that addiction too.
Yeah. So fast forward really quick. So I'm sure you're going to say your thing to get me to go to the next one, but I'll just go ahead and say it for you.
Mm.
So I had already, because I was like moving in. This is the worst part. I didn't even tell you this. I was full on moving in. I had told my landlord I would be out by March 1st, that he could have the place back as of March 1st, because I was moving all of my stuff and I'd rented a storage unit to put the excess stuff into. So I call my landlord back and I'm like, hey, by the way, I need to stay. And he's like, hey, by the way, it's already rented. Like, you have to leave. And I'm like, but that's like 16 days from now. And he's like, that's not my problem.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh. So I scramble. I go take out a loan against my car, and I got us somewhere else to stay, and we ended up moving to Lake Station. But so I don't know. Do you want me to
So this brings us to happier times. Happier times are around. Lucinda is now in a really bad part of her life again, where she was going to contemplate suicide again, but she decided to do a different coping mechanism this time. And she decided to throw herself into life instead of death. And this is hard for an adult to all of a sudden be like, I'm going to just now change everything dramatically. She even had it to the point where she updated her will. She had it planned how the kids were going to be taken care of. She was going to be done with it. She was going to end her life. But she decided to do something instead, which is one of the coolest things I've heard. She decided to take to Facebook. Oh, good old Facebook.
The Book of Face.
The Book of Faces. And she decided to Google what her hobbies, like what she was interested in. And she told me that she liked tattoos. She liked vintage. She liked punk. She was like, it's that life. So she started looking for people that were kind of like her tribe. And she came up with roller derby. Pretty cool. Yeah. So how most of us would just go watch roller derby. No, not this one. She was like, I'm going to go join a roller derby. And she did just that. She joined a roller derby league, and she was 41 at this time, which is incredible for you to join a roller derby league at 41. Most people would not have the guts to do that.
I think I was the oldest one on the team, but I didn't care.
Yeah, who cares? Who cares? And then that kind of introduced her to the pinup world in itself, because she said, believe it or not, a lot of the girls that were on the roller derby were actually already in the pinup scene. So from there, it was history when people started kind of like pulling her in all the directions of like, you should check out this site. You should go check out this group. Have you seen this group? And that gives us to 2018, where she discovered full-fledged. She really threw herself into it, ladies and gentlemen. Like 60 contests into it in 1 year.
So, no, it's 40 in 1 year. I'm like 60
40,
now.
40 in 1 year. I'm sorry. I 40, just 40. Not no biggie, just 40.
I don't want to exaggerate. Like it was like 38 shows I did in 1 year, in one season.
I did 3. She did 40. So just to show you how much she was determined to make her life the best that she could, despite all the things that she went through, that was her thing that she decided to do. She decided to throw herself into this newfound world. And I will let her describe her experience when she got to meet a lot of the girls in the pinup world for the first time.
Either I think his or grandma's.
The kid, hold on.
So we're back. We're going to do an intro. So we're back with Lucinda. She had to take a little moment to deal with her teenage son, which we all understand that struggle. So I left it up to you to just kind of tell the people out there your experience with finally getting into the
interview. No. Now it's Sophie. I'm like, I'm in an interview. Go away. So fast forward, how I get into the pinup world.
Yes.
So
tell us how you felt when you found the pinup community.
Well, I was scared shitless at first, because I didn't think that. Well, I feel like I should back up and tell you how I got to be in 38 shows. So when I found the groups on Facebook, and these people are like, oh, come to these car shows. I'm like, cool, yeah. And they're like, you should do a pinup contest. I'm like, what the hell's a pinup contest? And they start telling me like, oh, it's like a beauty pageant. I was like, have you guys seen me? Like, I am not a beauty queen. Like, no, that is not no. And they're like, no, it's so much fun. It's this, it's that, yada, yada, yada. So I start looking them up, and like one of the first ones I look up is Motoblot, and I see all these people, these beautiful women, and they're all in this, like I'm looking up these shows, and I find like Motoblot, and I find Mississippi Mayhem and Fire in the Hills, and like all of these shows, and World of Wheels, and like all these girls. It's like the same girls in these contests, and they're beautiful, flawless, gorgeous women, all in these crowns and this and that. And I'm like, I am not any one of those. They were like professionals. I'm over here with my $20 Hot Topic Hell Bunny dress. Like, no, that's not me. But the more I looked at it, the more fun it looked. And I was like, it just looks like, and mind you too, like, I think I'm dying. Like, they tell me all this stuff, and I'm still going through the motions of going through, treatment and stuff. But like, I still think I'm dying. Like, I'm doing my swan song, like, what if I'm going out, I'm going out with a bang. And I thought, you know what?
Blaze of glory.
Fuck it. I'm gonna, you know what? So then I got a plan, a theory. I'm like, all right, this is how it's gonna work. So here I am. I'm a nobody. I'm not a professional. They all have like these applications, that you have to do. And I'm like, I'm just going to apply to as many as I can. Every single one. I'm going to apply to every single one. And one of these bitches is going to be stupid enough to be like, so-and-so can't come, or we only had 10 entrants and we need 11. Who's that redhead chick? I don't know. Just put her in. She can just stand on the stage and look stupid for a minute. So we have enough contestants.
Right.
And I figure that's what it's going to be. I ended up getting into every one. I got myself into hot water. I double booked myself on the same weekend, the same day. I'm going to, there's literally sometimes that I would like literally go to like a show Friday night and then have one Saturday morning and then have one Sunday afternoon.
Oh my God.
And like traveling all over, like Wisconsin, Detroit, Iowa, St. Louis, like
oh my God.
everywhere, all over Hell's Creation.
So what was it when you met the girls for the first time?
That's what I was just getting to.
Okay.
That's what I was just getting to. But so fast forward into being around these women. I was intimidated as fuck. Yeah. The first thing I went to was a Motoblot event. And the first person I meet, which I don't know, like all of us girls in the scene are watching this, Alicia.
Yeah.
And Charlotte Sharp is who I meet. Okay. And I'm like, okay, like it's not that they weren't nice, but you could just tell, like, this is not somebody you want on your bad side. Like, you do not want to play. They are not playing games. They're like super like they're professional, but like kind of raw too, and it's like, okay, like, I just want to be your friend. Can I just like sit next to you and drink a beer? I'm like, oh wow. And like, they were all so, like, Motoblot was like I was so lucky to be a part of that show as my first show. First of all, there's like a group, you go through it, you have to like do voting and stuff, and, oh, sorry, not now. Sorry. There's like, you submit and like anybody can like, be in the contention to run to get into Motoblot, but you have to like a voting thing, like Facebook votes and stuff. And so you have like a little like secret Facebook group that like we all talk about, like talk to each other. And like some of them girls were like returning ones, like Hannah and April and Alicia and Kat and who the hell else was in that show? Danielle Murdoch and God, who wasn't in that show? Like all the heavy hitters. But then there was some of us new girls too that didn't know our asses from a hole in the ground. Didn't know where to buy anything, didn't know how to do our hair, like we're lipstick on our teeth and like, oh, hi, and I didn't even have a pinup photo. I'm like, I got a selfie, like, hey, I'm really cool. And they were just so freaking supportive and so sweet and so nice. And not just about like, girls were getting in there too, like talking about like their personal lives and stuff, and like just reaching out, and like the Motoblot experience was great, but like even like I think it really just fell into place like after Motoblot, like people like Alicia and Danielle and Kat and April and then I went to another show and soon after that, Lady Liberty and I met like Joe Ico. I'm probably saying that wrong. Misdemeanor, whatever. And Stephanie Stobridge and like all these people, and literally they are the reason they like, and I love my kids, don't get me wrong. You know, I would have fought for my kids, and I had to quit roller derby because I ended up being too sick to continue to skate. No, not right now. Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that when I'm done with this. I'm sorry, children. I would have fought for my kids, but, and this is going to sound so terrible, but it's not a terrible thing, because as a mother, I love my children and we've got a good relationship. You know, like you guys have all met Sophia. She comes with me to everything. She's my little carbon copy, and she's just as mouthy and sassy as her mother, you know, and like she loves to come, you know, and my world would not revolve without her. And Elliot, don't get me wrong, my son too, you know, but he's a boy and I'm a girl, so we don't really jive on it. He's not wearing dresses with me and stuff and doing makeup. But they gave me a reason to live. They gave me something to look forward to. They gave me a family when I had none. They gave me sisters when I had none. They continue to constantly check up. I'm on my interview with you and Sarah Pierce is calling me, you know, just to check up, just to shoot the shit, you know, like I mean, you, girl, I barely know you. And like, you have sent me messages and check in on me and like, hey, I saw this was going on with your daughter, which if you guys know me, you know, like I just had a big scare. My daughter ran away and it was not a good thing. And like, we're not going to get into that, but it is the most beautiful, pure, uplifting sisterhood. And like, and when I say sisterhood, like I mean sisters, fuck friends. You guys aren't my friends, you know, because like I feel like it's like blood, and like we will shed blood if somebody wants to mess with somebody. Like
shake
like,
a motherfucker for you.
we're packing razor blades and Vaseline in our purses, you know, because like we're not playing around.
Like, hold my ears. Wait a minute. Hold on, my ears.
Hold on.
Right, let me take this off.
Okay. But, we're going to Culver's, Mom. Okay, go to Culver's. Have fun. Right, exactly. But yeah, like I am so grateful, and there's literally not a day that I wake up that I don't thank the universe for putting you guys in my life. And it has literally become something that's so important to me that like when I take on a job or I start seeing somebody or whatnot, that I'm like, I let them know, like, I go to car shows and I go to pinup shows and I go to pinup parties. And if you're lucky enough to be invited, like, you better be cool around my friends. Don't embarrass me. Don't be stupid. And they come first.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And they will shank you if you hurt me.
Exactly. So yeah.
Let's got warrants for arrest. No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, I mean, it's just.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, like, I only knew you for a blurb before we did this interview, and this is why I'm enjoying doing this immensely. Not just because I know that this is kind of cathartic for a lot of people to kind of like have their story out, and now it's not even like a secret because you have no control over it. It is what it is. It's a monkey off your back. But when I go through my own internal struggles, to hear someone who's gone through a millisecond, even if we only have a little bit that is the same, it makes people feel united in just that alone. And I think that's one thing that the pinup group has. Mm-hmm. Somewhere down the line, we all intertwine with something that's another thing
that I feel, not to cut you off, that's another thing that I feel is beautiful about this group. We're all the fucking nerds. We're all that super Dungeons and Dragons video game playing. I didn't wash my hair all of sophomore year of high school. We're all those girls.
Yeah.
That don't fit in anywhere else.
Fit in, like, and yeah. Yeah.
And like now, like somehow through like a hot rod car and some lipstick, you know, like we're all in this together and have just found like this amazing, I hate to say, keep saying amazing and sisterhood, because like I'm sure every video.
One of the girls, I think it was, I want to say it might have been Kat, but I've talked to so many girls, but one of them said this is like a tribe.
Yes.
And like when they joined it, it was like I found my tribe where I belong. So
yeah. I finally found my place in the world and where I'm supposed to be. And I will be 88 years old in my wheelchair and my
red lipstick.
With it all up in my creases from smoking too much and whatever. And I'll be there. Well, across the street, just let me in. You know, I don't care. I will continue to do this.
Oh my God.
To the day
Well,
I die.
This is like a great place to drop your pearls and tie this up into a nice little bow. I want you to share with like the new pinups that are coming in that we're trying to get to come, all the misfits that have not found their tribe yet. Once they get here, what is like a pearl that you want to share?
My biggest thing, and it's kind of like my mantra per se, is what's kind of like a double thing. Treat everybody the way that you want to be treated, and that means just being honest and truthful and open, because no matter how bad that you think it is, it's not that bad, and somebody out there's been through it and have been there and done that, and not in like a you know, like a girl, I get you, I got you, I get it, you know, and like we're all going to be here for you no matter what. And this is as intimidating as it may feel and whatever, it just don't even, I hope you compete because it's really fun, but if you don't compete, just come to a show. Just come to a show and talk to one of us, and you'll see
we will have open arms, and we will embrace you. We will break your back of how much they're going to smother you with love. Yes. Like that is how strong it is.
That's my advice. Don't be scared. Don't worry about it. You know, let your freak flag fly, and this is the place for you.
All right. I couldn't have said it any better. She's probably one of my longest stories I've taken so far. We're capping it at 1 hour and 30 minutes, but it was worth it because I knew from the start of meeting this woman and meeting her daughter and meeting everybody that loved her, she was actually recommended to me from other girls in the pinup to actually reach out to her and get her story. So for most of the girls here, they came to me. I actually sought out Lucinda because so many girls said, you need someone to talk to that has a story to share. You need someone that's been through it and has came out on the other side. This is the girl you want to talk to. So I am okay with dedicating as much time as you needed, baby girl, to tell your story because it was a story that needed to be told. So I appreciate it. And from my heart to yours, thank you so much.
I appreciate you. Thanks for letting me be a part of this.
Of course. So for everybody that's there, thank you again for joining us and listening to Lucinda's story. I hope that this has helped you guys if you're ever finding yourself in anything similar or, you know, need someone to talk to. I was going to say, I'm sure Lucinda will be willing to talk to you if you have any questions or you need advice. I'm sure she's willing to be here just like people have been there for her.
Yes.
Thank you for tuning in to Shell's Pearls of Wisdom. Please hit like, subscribe. And I will see you guys around the bend. Keep your crown straight and walk with that confidence, beautiful. Love ya. You hang on. I'm going to still talk to you.
Okay.
Bye.